Ho, ho, ho! Merry Christmas, people! It's that time of the year. Cinema Discovery Project. It's what? A couple days before Christmas?
It is December 23rd.
Yes.
The day before Christmas.
Christmas Eve.
Yes, Christmas Eve. And I almost wanted to start out singing Jingle Bells, but I thought that would be too abrupt, and I didn't actually clear it with Steven.
Yeah, you didn't clear it with me.
He does all the singing.
Yeah, I do all the singing on this
I
show.
do all the listening. But this is a brand new episode of the Cinema Discovery Project. I'm Andrew Cabral, and with my co-host and friend, Stephen Billings.
Hello.
And this is our, I guess you could say, annual holiday-themed episode.
Yeah, I mean, we last week we did, or last episode we did a little bit holiday themed too, but you know, we just the month we always try to keep it Christmas themed, holiday themed. So,
and I only say annual because we've only done one other one, and that was last December. Yes, because that's right around that we had only started the podcast
we're about a year and a
fall.
half into our podcast. We've been doing this for a year and a half.
Yes. Time does fly. But this time we're going to be doing a spotlight, and it's going to be a spotlight on a movie called The Shop Around the Corner. And it's, of course, a classic black and white film. We were trying to find a film that perhaps is not a film that a lot of people have seen. I mean, everybody talks about It's a Wonderful Life. Everybody talks about all of the adaptations of A Christmas Carol.
Miracle on 34th Street, you know.
Miracle on 34th Street, there's been, I think, two of those. The original, and then the remake.
I think there's been a TV movie maybe or something too.
Course. I believe that. And then of course there's a Christmas Story.
Yeah.
There's so many Christmas themed ones. There's the How the Grinch Stole Christmas. There's been so many of them. But we wanted to do one that's kind of Christmassy, but it's a classic film, and it's something that I think is an important film because I think it stars one of the greatest actors ever, and I think one of the most well-known actors ever, and that is one Jimmy Stewart. But it's a film that came out in 1940, directed by Ernst Lubitsch. And Ernst Lubitsch is probably a director not a lot of people know of. I think he's more known to kind of cinephiles like Stephen and I. I first discovered him pretty much through the Criterion Collection. No big shocker there.
Sure.
I think I discovered him through his film... I think it's To Be or Not To Be.
Yeah, To Be or Not To Be. It's the one that's set World War II. And
satire. It's a satire. Yeah. And it is that one came out in 1942. That starred Carol Lombard and Jack Benny, and that was one of the first Criterions I remember buying many years ago. But then I also bought Design for Living is another film from him, as well as Clooney Brown, which is a film I just
recently came out on Criterion.
And then Heaven Can Wait.
Yeah, Heaven Can Wait's the one I knew. I think is the first one. That's
a good film.
Yeah.
I have all of those, and there's also an Eclipse set that has his has a bunch of his musicals in it as well. It's just called Lubitsch. I think it's called Ernst Lubitsch's Musicals or something like that. But he's a director who's predominantly did work only in the actually it looks like 20s. Well, never mind. It goes back to the 19-teens. He has 74 directorial credits according to IMDb, going all the way back to 1914 and ending in 1948.
Yeah, he was friends with Billy Wilder and William Wyler. They were like they a lot of them guys knew each other, and apparently he apparently suffered from a lot of heart attacks throughout his life. I was reading something about it where he apparently, his bad health, and he kept, they kept telling him to stop, eating rich foods and having so much sex. Apparently, he was having a lot of sex.
Whoa, hey,
I'm just saying. This is what they told me. I read.
That is heavy on the heart.
Yeah, and he
in more ways than one.
Yeah, and he he apparently they said, hey, if you do this, you might live to 100. And he's like, well, you might as well just kill me now if you want to make me stop having sex. And so he kept doing his thing. But apparently William Wyler and Billy Wilder were really good friends. So they all kind of made some of the same types of movies.
Yeah, his films have a not I wouldn't say lighter quality to them, but they have an energy to them, pacing to them and whatnot. And he died in 1947 at the age of 55. Was born in 1892. And yeah, like I said, a lot of movies in what teens, 20s, and 40s, like 3 decades or so. Going from the silent era all the way to the sound era. It's very interesting you mentioned Billy Wilder, because I believe Billy Wilder came from, coincidentally, where this movie is set, which is Hungary. Yeah, which is Hungary. And Ernst Lubitsch was born in Germany, so they're from that Middle European world. And it's very interesting how they probably came over maybe around the same time, or maybe I know Billy Wilder had come over. Basically, the rise of Nazism and all that kind of stuff. He kind of saw that coming, and they got out. A lot of people got out of Germany and that part of the world before World War II.
Yeah.
What is interesting about this movie is that it's set. It's set in. They don't tell you when it's set, but I believe they make a reference to the crash in 1929, but they don't make any reference to the war that's going on.
Yeah.
There was a weird. I was discussing this last night with a friend. As I was rewatching the movie, there was some portion in kind of that of Hollywood filmmaking at that time where they would make movies set in countries that were at war, like because World War II was happening. 1939 is when it started, the invasion of Poland and in France and whatnot. But like they would make movies set in the country where seemingly like there was no reference to a war or anything like that. Like they would just pretend as if nothing was happening. Very, very interesting that this is kind of one of those films. But The Shop Around the Corner also stars Margaret Sullivan as well as Frank Morgan. And I believe
he's the Wizard of Oz.
He's the Wizard of Oz. Thank you. Yeah, exactly where he's from. He was in the Wizard of Oz. He was in a bunch of films as well. He had 100 credits actually to his name up until 1950, which is actually only 10 years after this. He actually died in 1949, so only 9 years after this movie came out. Coincidentally died at 59 years old. Although he looks much older.
I was going to say he looks a lot older.
50.
Yeah.
And very interesting, but. I saw this movie for the first time a few years ago. I want to say on Turner Classic Movies, because they seem to play this movie a lot.
Okay.
They seem to play a lot of Jimmy Stewart films a lot and these classic films. I think that's where I first watched it. It was probably on like TCM On Demand on their website, because they kind of mostly every movie they show on TV, they then have it streaming for like a limited time on their website, which is kind of nice because the quality is a lot better on their website than it is on my television, because for some reason my cable provider only has Turner Classic Movies on standard definition, and it doesn't look very good because a lot of these older movies aren't restored or anything like that, so they don't look good in general. But online it's like HD quality and whatnot. But The Shop Around the Corner is a film I had heard about because it is the original film that a much more famous and well-known film is a remake of. Yeah. And that is You've Got Mail, starring Meg Ryan and Tom Hanks. A lot of people know that movie. Yeah. And it is basically the same premise.
It is, and
it just updated to like the year 2000.
That, and they focus a lot more into the letters and the letter portion of that story.
Yes.
Yeah, I think they spent a lot more time thinking. That's the crux of the remake.
In You've Got Mail, it's emails versus letters. It capitalized that whole AOL, You've Got Mail and all that kind of stuff. I think
they also, in the remake, play up the romantic, the romance in the movie more.
It's a much more elaborate film. Like, she's a small, Meg Ryan's character she owns like a smaller bookstore in New York, and Tom Hanks, like, owns like a big chain, like a Barnes and Noble type chain, and he's basically buying like they're basically like pushing the small mom and pop shops out of business, the small bookstores, which is pretty much what has happened a lot in this country. But they're making a comeback apparently, the smaller bookstores, which is kind of nice because you like to have a variety when it comes to if you're a book buyer.
It's also they're cheaper.
Shops. Right. They are cheaper. If there's just one person selling, they can basically monopolize the pricing and just sell you at it whatever you want, and you have to buy it because you can't get it anyplace else. Yeah. That's basically how monopolies work. Yeah. I mean, there are laws against monopolies, and that's why they exist, so that people aren't taken advantage of. But by this point, the big corporations own everything. Yeah. But The Shop Around the Corner is a much more smaller film.
I would
than
say
You've
that
Got
it's
Mail.
it's a little bit. I think the romance in the movie is a little more nuanced. It's not. I don't think. I almost don't feel like the romantic aspect is as played up as the movie as you would think it would be. Like I think it's a little bit
in
more.
The Shop Around the Corner.
Yeah, I think it's a little more subtle than that. I think the movie's got a lot more. It's talking about a lot more than that romance in the movie.
Oh yeah, there's a lot more happening in The Shop Around the Corner than just the romance. So I guess we'll just dive right into it with the opening scene. It basically tells us we're in Budapest, Hungary. This is
Which, by the way, none of them look like they're European.
Yeah,
by the way,
I was just gonna say that,
except for maybe the one friend who's
Pirovich.
Yeah, Pirovich is about the only one that might seem
yeah, he has an accent.
Yeah.
You have to realize that this happened so many times in the golden age of Hollywood, all the way up through even to now. It's only really now that we're getting the pushback of like not like casting like cultural appropriate actors into certain roles.
Yeah, because these are a bunch of Americans living in Hungary, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Like none of them are Hungarian, at least from my knowledge, or even from that area. But like that happened so many times in Hollywood and whatnot. We kind of brush it aside now because that's the times, but it doesn't take away from the movie in my opinion. No. But okay, we're in Budapest, Hungary. It's after the crash. It could be 1940, in that area basically, and basically we get an opening in front of a store, and it's the Matacek. What's it called? Matacek and Company, I think, store.
Yeah, Matacek and Company.
And basically they sell, I don't know, kind of a bit of everything. It's like a miniaturized department store, basically.
Yeah, it's like a small department store. They sell a little bit of everything: clothing, handbags.
Suitcases.
Today we would call it an antique store.
Do you think it's an antique? Well, I think they sell.
I wouldn't say it's an antique store of the time. I think that we would look at it as like a small antique department store kind of thing.
Well, it's like an antique store
or a boutique
size.
store maybe.
Yeah, like a boutique store. Yeah. But they sold like new products and whatnot, and they sell. But
we know from the beginning that he's trying his best to. I mean, he's obviously not selling boutique stuff. He's selling kind of cheap stuff.
Oh, no, he wants to sell quality stuff.
Well, he's not selling. He wants to sell quality stuff, but he's not buying quality stuff to sell. Because the whole thing with the box at the beginning.
Oh, yeah. So basically, it opens up with everybody hanging out outside waiting for the boss to show up to open the door. And apparently that's like kind of a morning ritual with these people. And we kind of get a nice cross-section of who these people are. Like, we get basically introduced to them on the site. There's, of course... Mr. Matacek, or Hugo Matacek, is played by Frank Morgan. Jimmy Stewart is Kralik, and his first name is Alfred, actually. Yeah, Alfred Kralik. Yeah. And then there's his friend Pirovich. Felix Bressart is the actor's name. He plays Pirovich. Sarah Hayden is an actress who plays Flora. She works there. And then there's this guy who's rather flamboyant. Yeah. The actor's name who portrays him is Joseph Schildkraut, and he's Ferenc Vadas.
Yeah.
What a very
suck-up.
Elaborate name.
He's the suck-up.
He's a very he wears very flamboyant outfits. Like he's wearing like bow ties and the hat and the thing with the gloves and all that kind of stuff. And he's a suck-up. Oh yeah, he's a kiss ass. Yeah. We don't get introduced to the Margaret Sullivan character until like the next scene. So
and then then you have the errand boy, as they call him.
Yeah, Pepe.
Yeah, Pepe.
Pepe Cologne.
He is my favorite character in the movie.
William Tracy.
He is my favorite.
Really?
Yes.
You don't find him annoying?
No, look. Okay, I get it. Yeah. Sometimes his voice is annoying, but there are scenes of comedy in this movie where he says things like the part when at the end when he's now a clerk and the new errand boy's there and he's given a tip and he takes the tip away from the new errand boy and he's like, that's too much.
But what's crazy, he hands it back to him too.
Well, no, he does, but I just think that he's got some great lines.
He has some
great lines in this movie where he's pretty funny.
He does. Yeah. So they're all outside waiting for Mr. Krog. So when Mr. Krog shows up, Pepe opens the door right away, Mr. Matacek and whatnot. What is fascinating to me about this whole opening scene is you really see how, I wouldn't say old-fashioned the way people acted, but just there's a sense of hierarchical reverence that
Yeah.
I think is very interesting when it comes to working a job, you know what I mean, a career or something like that, where like the boss is someone you treat with a moniker of respect and reverence, especially I guess in this specific area or whatever. Like the boss, he's the business owner, he's the big boss
And
guy,
with
you
that,
know?
and with that, there's also this idea that's set up that kind of crosses them boundaries, where the Jimmy Stewart character, they'd been talking about how he had dinner with him and his wife. So you have this whole thing which I think is one of the themes that we go over in the whole movie, which is this idea of, your work relationships and your personal relationships, and then how that can intertwine, and then also, not kind of judging things by what we see at, on the outside, or, what we just see when we're at work.
That's a huge,
they all have their own personal lives, and it's who they are at work is not who they are everywhere,
Right. I really like that you mentioned that, because it actually does play a bigger role later on in the movie.
Yeah.
Where basically, he mentioned that he had dinner over Monachek's house, and he had too much goose liver, so he needs a bicarbonate soda. So he's having like I guess a bicarbonate soda people used to take for like indigestion or heartburn or something like that, or upset stomach. Think like Alka-Seltzer, something like that. Like basically bicarbonate soda now is like Coca-Cola. That's essentially what it is now. Kind of what it is. But so and then someone said, it was very interesting how they start arguing over it, like because somebody said like, oh, like he was like, they misinterpreted that he was complaining about the goose liver versus saying I had too much of it, which is two different things.
Well,
you have too much of something and like it versus having, hating something.
Well, it sets up the disdain between Jimmy Stewart's character and the what's his name, the
Vanish.
Yeah, Vanish character. So that's kind of where that starts. I think the reason he's the one that brings it up and says,
right, and they start arguing. But when the boss shows up, the arguing stops.
Yeah, stops. Yeah.
So what we also learn is that Kralik, Jimmy Stewart's character, is the oldest employee there, and he's the one who has the most experience. He's the most successful. But there's a tension between the two, and the tension is over the cigarette box that plays a song every time you open it. It plays Ochi Chornya, which is an older classic, I guess, Hungarian song, like a classical piece. And they can't, and the Matacek is deciding whether he wants to buy a bunch of them to sell.
Yeah.
I think he's buying a bunch of them at like $250 a piece, and of course he wants to sell them for much more, because that's how it works. That's how business works. Yeah. You buy low, sell high. That's kind of how capitalism works. And Jimmy Stewart says no. It's annoying, and people are not going to want to hear that song every time they open the box. And also he's like, it's cheap imitation leather. It's not put together well. It's going to fall apart in a week, and all that kind of stuff. And basically, the guy's basically he's leaning towards not buying it or whatever. And what is interesting is that he gets a phone call, I guess, from the supplier during it, and he basically tells the supplier, like, he yells at the guys, like saying like, I can't make my decision now or whatever. And, like,
he gets cold feet on it because Jimmy Stewart tells him what he tells him, and so he thinks twice. But this is kind of the start of how their relationship starts to unravel a little bit, because they obviously have respect for each other, but Jimmy Stewart wants to get a raise. Well,
not only that, but like,
he was supposed to be a manager.
I think there's a bit of a old school, new school type thing here.
I would say a little bit.
Just because the way they keep referring to Ochi Chornya, the song, and the way he keeps referring to it as an old classic song, you know what I mean? Like, it feels like just like the guy's holding on to a past that he likes, but it's not something that's going to sell to the modern buyer, you know what I mean? As opposed to Jimmy Stewart, who wants to probably, sell something more modern to more modern people. It seems like he understands the buyers more than the boss
he's the one
does.
that works directly with the customers all the time.
Then that makes sense.
Yeah. But I was gonna say one of the things is I think that this really shows you the start of the unraveling, because, you know, him wanting to get their relationships kind of falling apart in the sense of he's trying to reward them by being closer at getting close to his employees, but really what they want is to grow in their careers. He think that's enough to reward them, but what they want to do is be rewarded with getting a raise or getting, you know, like his stress of the workplace is conflicting with his relationship with his employees, and he's taking it out on them. Like, he's obviously trying to buy cheaper, not quality stuff because he's hard on money. So then now he's not the things he promised his employees, he's taking it out on them because he's not doing good business.
What we learn is there's a specific reason why he's hard up for money. Not hard up, but there's a financial strain there, which we'll get to in a little while. But basically, what happens next is the Margaret Sullivan character of Clara Novak walks in. And initially, Jimmy Stewart goes up to her and says, you know, and starts trying to sell her a handbag. And she's like, "Oh, I'm not here for a handbag." And he's like, "Oh, okay, if you have any questions, just come, you know, don't hesitate." Basically, that usual stuff you hear from people nowadays, anyways.
But she's there to get it. She's
there to get a job.
She's there to get a job. Yeah. So, you know, a lot of people are on hard times. You know, and I think that plays a little bit into the what can maybe tie this to Christmas, other than the end of the movie being set around Christmas. That, you know, the movie's about, you know, how that, you know, the strain of the times of that time of the year too. I mean, like, you know, people are pressured to spend money and to do things, you know, to buy gifts for people so you have to have money, you have to have a job, you have to, like, that's the strain of that time of the year, you know? Right.
Also, apparently we learned that she also worked for another store, like a rival store, Blashek. So she wants to meet with Mr. Matichek, and Jimmy Stewart's like, I know the guy. He's not gonna give you a job. You're wasting your time. Like, I know him better than anybody. Yeah. And then Mr. Matichek overhears this, and he doesn't understand the context of the conversation. Yeah. And so he's like, "Okay, madam, I can help you. I can do anything for you. Nothing here is impossible." And then she's like, "Oh, great. I'm looking for a job." And he goes, "That's impossible."
Yeah.
And it's like it brings up this idea, like, you know, anything is possible until somebody tells you something that you don't want to hear. Sure. Then that's impossible. Yeah. And it's really,
and it also causes more contention between him and Jimmy Stewart, because he doesn't like the fact that he thinks that he basically thinks he's undermining him and you know, and saying, hey, you know, being arrogant, you know, that he knows what he's thinking or knows what he would say in a certain situation. And he was right. I mean, he knows that, you know, he's hard up right now, you know, and he even complains about it later, that this store has 6 employees when another store only has 4 employees and it's a bigger store.
Right.
You know, like,
but what happens is, well, what is interesting is before, when they were having that row we were talking about the box, is when Vladish basically kisses up to him and says, "Oh yeah, this is a great box. I love this box," all that kind of stuff. I really like how Pirovich, every time Matichek would ask, like, what do you think about this? Like, what is your opinion about this? And Pirovich would just walk into another room just to get out of the line of, like, potential yelling or whatnot of this guy is about to explode when you tell him the truth that the box is crap. You know what I mean? and but that plays into it, because, like, they're talking Matichek and Kralik talk in his office, and then I think Kralik, Vladish walks in, or somebody walks in and says, like, "Oh, there's somebody looking to potentially buy the box," and it's Margaret Sullivan's character. It's
she opens it up and the music starts playing, and they hear it and they
she
go
starts
out.
Playing with it, like, oh, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, that's somebody who just wanted a job or whatever." And then Jimmy Stewart's like, "Oh, I'll handle it." And then they go over to. And then it's like, there's no point of waiting around here. You might as well just leave. And basically, Kralik Miss Novak sells that box to another woman
as a candy box.
And the way she does it though is she basically tells her that it's like a diet thing. It's like an anti-candy
the
box.
music signals to your brain not to eat the candy.
Yeah, like it'll tell it, like you'll not want to hear that music so much that you'll want to not eat candy.
Yeah.
Like that'll just drive you crazy.
It's kind of funny enough. It kind of plays into the idea that Jimmy Stewart said about the box was that you're eventually going to get annoyed by that song.
Yeah.
And
but it's also the fact that you can't sell it as a cigarette box. You have to sell it as something else because it's not appealing as what it is. Yeah. As what it is.
Which is funny enough, kind of a little bit of like the main theme of the romance of the story. The two characters are like,
they're on opposite sides.
Well, they are, but like, this movie essentially is about two people that are in love with being in love. They both have an idea about what love is, but they don't really know because they're too busy like fantasizing about things that are he's writing these great poems and she's, fantasizing about this man that she's never met and not really confronting anything. And at the same time, this box is not is a facade.
Yeah, what we learned also in this whole sequence here is he talked to his friend Perovich about this ad that he came across in the paper.
Yeah.
And this ad was basically a woman seeking someone to talk about like intellectual things with. Yeah. Things like literature and stuff like that. And he answered it, and they've been having a correspondence back and forth, and the letters have been so romantic and poetic and beautiful and all that kind of stuff. And Kralik is smitten over this woman, and he's never met her. And when I was rewatching this movie last night with a friend, I basically I paused and I told him this is such a contemporary idea. This idea of long distance corresponding with someone as a potential mate. It's basically, internet dating
online dating
apps or online dating or even just social media interactions with somebody who you find sexually attractive on the other side of the country, other side of the planet, whatever. This idea of just long distance communication is so interesting that it's still relevant today.
Yeah.
Just back then, it was a newspaper ad versus.
You had to wait a lot longer for your messages.
yeah, basically. Which I guess made it more personal or more anticipatory now, as opposed to like, a quick text message back or a message back on whatever social media platform. But he is smitten by this woman, and what how do I want to say it? So basically, Miss Novak's character, she does end up getting the job, and then we cut to another sequence, and there's like a flash forward.
Wait, it flashes forward like 6 months.
Yeah, like a while. And what is interesting is we see the way she sold the box for like $5.50 when he was really only going to sell it for $4.50, like really impressed him. Yeah. So he started selling it for $5.50, but he got a bunch of them. He bought a bunch of them from the supplier, and now they're in the window marked down to like $2.50 because nobody has bought them. They're just sitting there in the window, and I love how there's just a nice camera hold on that scene directly. Well, on that shot directly, where she only used it to sell that one box, and it doesn't really prove that box is really worth anything. Yeah. Like his business prowess is still not great. So they're outside the store waiting once again for the store to be opened up by Matichek. And what happens is we learn that there's a contentious relationship between Kralik and Miss Novak. They just don't really get along over the last couple months.
They don't get along, but there is a banter there. It's a banter.
The banter in the what do I want to say? Chemistry is there.
It's the classic thing that would get recycled in our modern times so much, where the romantic couple hate each other and they say vile things to each other, but ultimately that comes from a place of that they're attracted in some way to the person.
You would think so, but initially
it doesn't come off that way initially.
Yeah, it doesn't. Initially, I don't think it's quite there.
Yeah, and it
gets there later on.
I think that they hide it very well in this movie, which is why I say the romantic angle of the movie doesn't feel so evident in the movie. I think that they don't really get into that until about halfway, maybe even the third act of the movie, really.
Right.
So.
But what we learn is, I mean, he criticizes her for like kind of like nitpicky things, like the way that she was dressed the day before was a green dress with like yellow dots on it or something like that. He didn't like that. He thought it was too flashy or something ridiculous like that. Where coincidentally, movie came out in 1940. Men are still criticizing women for what they wear, and it's 2019, about to be 2020, and like that's still a thing that's been happening for decades and generations now. I just found that to be an interesting modern connection.
Well, just like like going to your saying of how the letter writing is, like the internet today,
right.
It's also he's presenting himself as something that he's not, that he is actually. It's kind of the reverse. Today, people a lot of times will present themselves in the way that they're not today, but in their correspondence through their letters, they're actually being more honest. And they're not showing it to each other in person. He acts kind of like a stickler in person to her,
right?
But really, he's a thoughtful and a romantic person.
Oh yeah, he's a softer person.
If only he was being himself to her all the time,
Right.
They might have.
And we get that played out a little bit in the
last scene, last big scene. Yeah. It gets all.
But we also
out.
get it like right after the sequence we're talking about, because the store opens, they go in, and basically he's going to be meeting his pen pal over tonight, and we also learn that she is going to be meeting the person she's been corresponding with as well tonight too.
Well, they both need to get off for the night, but apparently,
and they both need to get off.
But yeah, apparently they have to stay and put stuff in the
Yeah, they have to decorate
the front window, So
and he's also looking for
a raise
as well. But we also get the Mr. Marchak gets a phone call from his wife where she needs money, like she needs more spending money, and he's like, "Well, what happened to the money I gave you before?"
Yeah.
Also, this happened when they were waiting outside. Vladish rolls up with a wad of cash.
Yeah.
Which I think is really important to keep that in mind. He rolls up and he's just flaunting cash, flaunting it. And then we get the phone call from the wife that she needs cash. This is all connected, by the way. The film really holds this whole mystery back until this sequence here, pretty much. And basically, she wants to get the night off. He wants to get the night off, and basically she's like trying to butter. They're in the back storeroom and she's like trying to help him out. She's trying to she plays nice with him because she wants him to cover her for tonight while he's also trying to get off as well. And what happens is they pretty much both end up having an argument with Marchak.
Well, yeah, he's already under the stress of the job, but he's also had this suspicion of his wife for a while,
right? And
that's creating more stress for him.
And what is interesting, we don't get that part until like the very next moment where he gets a phone call. So basically, they have a whole big dust up, and he has this is a great sequence where he's just kind of cussing everybody out. This is when he brings up, like, I've got 6 employees here, the other store's small, they only have 4, I treat you well, all this kind of stuff. Where did all this contention come from? And he's just kind of
and it even gets to a point where he's, Jimmy Stewart's character says, maybe I should call it a day.
Maybe I should call it a day.
Maybe I should quit.
I should quit. Well, what happens during that sequence when he's yelling at them is a customer walks in and he switches, like the light switches from one mode to another, and he just like, oh yeah, we have what was like a man handbag.
Somebody's woman's window shopping.
It's a male purse that the woman was looking for, a male handbag, and then she is just absolutely. And then he just switches off. It's like, yes, we do. He's like, oh, yeah, my husband will be here tomorrow. I'm just window shopping for him. And basically...
As soon as she leaves, he pops back into arguing with...
Pops back in. He goes right... And what's interesting, it's all one shot from him walking, panning across from, one part of the shop to the other part of the shop. And then he absolutely decides that... And then
the call comes in about it from his wife.
Yeah. What happens is the scene cuts to them, and they're decorating the tree... Miss Novak and Kralik, they're decorating the tree, and then what happens is they and then that's when he gets the call, and then like the PI is gonna come over and tell him.
Well, no,
all
I
the
mean,
information he's got.
first they get the call from the wife about getting the money, and then then he's, you know, initially Jimmy Stewart, they said they were going to go, but then he didn't trust him, so he decided to give the money to the one guy.
Yeah, he's gonna send 1,000. I forgot, what was it? Pega. I forgot what the currency was, but anyway, whatever the Hungarian money is.
But he gives it to the one guy, the suck-up guy.
He gives it to the Vadish guy to send to his wife on his lunch break.
Again, this guy's getting his money.
Yeah, Perovich actually came over and said, "Hey, I'll cover. Well,
I have lunch around there, you know."
Yeah, me and the others can cover for him and whatnot, and then that's when that whole argument started.
Yeah.
And then Perovich also offered to take the money as well.
Yeah.
Perovich is just a nice guy.
Yeah,
like
he's the good friend. He's the good friend. Yeah.
He's like a really good friend.
He's the
really
real friend. He's the one that has a family, and yeah.
Yeah, he's got a wife and 2 kids, and he's always like, he's like, oh, I gotta.
He's got more perspective. He has more perspective than everybody else does.
Yeah, more personal, familiar perspective. But then, like I said, they cut to them decorating. Then he gets the call from the PI, and then he's got to clear out the shop.
Yeah.
He basically clears out the shop. The PI comes over and says, "Yeah, you know, on such and such a date at 8:20 p.m. at night, we saw Mrs. Matichek go down to a taxi, get in it, and then, you know, meet up with a younger gentleman who is one of your employees, and we learn that it's Vadish." Yeah,
and right? he thought it was Jimmy
Stewart's
Kralik.
It was Kralik.
Yeah,
and what happens is, Perovich. Now, well, actually, before that even happened, Matichek fires Jimmy Stewart's character, gives him the severance.
Well, that's what's kind of weird about that scene too is for some reason Jimmy Stewart felt optimistic going into the office.
Yeah, he fixed his tie and was smiling at everybody, giving him a thumbs
after
up.
that, after the argument and all the stuff that happened before that, did he really think he was gonna get a raise after that?
And then when he walks out, Perovich goes, "Oh, how'd it go?" And he's got a smile on his face, and it's like
that scene was a little bit
It's like, huh?
That scene was a little bit misdone. I think.
I think the tone was a little.
It was a little off. Yeah.
It was a little way too optimistic, way too happy for what
he should have been a little bit more worried going into the office. Yeah.
I mean, maybe he had a false sense of confidence. Who really?
Well, he kind of is. He's a little bit on the arrogant side. So yeah.
No, true. Yeah. So basically, he got fired. Got the call. PI tells him all the info, and the place is empty. But Pepe shows up looking for everybody, and Pepe goes into one office, nobody's there. He goes in the other one, and Matichek's about to kill himself.
Yeah, this was the most shocking, because this is the only... when I watched this for this episode, I've seen it twice now, but it was the first time I'd seen it. And that scene was shocking to me. Like
when I first saw it a few years ago, I was like, wow, damn, they really
went that far with it for a movie in the 1940s?
Not only that, like they showed the bullet, the gunshot went off, the bullet hit the ceiling, and the kid You saw the kid took the gun and he put it on something else.
Well, it's one of them great moments where not seeing something worked so much better. Like he sees it, and then you don't know what happened, and then you see a gunshot go off, and you're like, "Holy shit! He just tried to kill himself." And
well, I mean, I think part of it is the Hays Code censoring.
Sure.
And the other part of it is that, in our minds as viewers, we understand what's going on. We can piece it together ourselves. It gives us the chance to do a little, critical thinking.
Sometimes our imaginations are a lot worse than what we actually can see.
Oh yeah, they're a lot more elaborate and a lot better than what we've got. And what is interesting is that after this happens, Jimmy Stewart, Kralik, and Perovich gets Jimmy Stewart to go see the girl, to see his.
He comes with him to go see who this girl is.
He comes with him like a good friend, a real good friend. And then of course she when she got the news that she was getting the night off like she wanted to, she went, grabbed all her stuff, ran out of the place. Miss Novak's character, and she's just sitting there waiting, and she's there. And basically they had this. They meet at this cafe, and they had a way where like she would be holding the book Anna Karenina by Tolstoy, and she would have, I forgot what it was, some type of flower would be the bookmark, and he was going to have that same flower on his lapel. Yeah. And I can't remember what it was. And I've seen this movie 3 times. I can't remember what it is. And that's how they would know who each other are. And so he's outside, and he's telling his friend Perovich, he's like, just looking for me. She's going to be having the book with the bookmark and all that kind of stuff. Don't tell if she's not good looking. Don't tell me. I can't handle the bad information. If all this kind of stuff. And he looks in. He's like, oh wow, there's a beautiful girl in there. But no book. Oh, there's one over there, but she's I can't see her past like the coat rack or something. And then all of a sudden he sees her, and he's like, oh wow, she's very, very pretty. And he's like, oh, she kind of looks like Clara. And
well, yeah, he's like, if it was her,
he's playing with them.
Yeah, he's like, well, if it's Miss Novak, then I don't want it. He's like, well, unfortunately, it is.
But he's like, the way Perovich is playing with, is like, it kind of looks like Clara. Do you think Miss Novak is very beautiful? And Jim Stewart's like, oh yeah, she's very good looking. He's like. And then he's like, well, are you attracted to Miss Novak? And I think Jimmy Stewart says like, oh no, she's been making my life a living like difficult and whatnot and all that kind of stuff. And he's like, well, that is Miss Novak.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to deal with that. Yeah.
And then like Jimmy Stewart's character was kind of a dick move. Let's be honest. He was gonna
just leave her. Yeah.
He was just gonna leave her, and he's like, and Perovich is like, wow, you're gonna really do that to her? That's kind of.
But then he decides to come back.
But we cut inside, and the waiter comes over. He's like, "Oh, can I have this chair?" And she's like, "Oh, no. I'm waiting for somebody, right?" And he notices the bookmark, and he's like, "Apparently, this is a place where a lot of people have done this, where like people like meet up for whatever reason. Like some people use like a carnation or a garnish or something like that." And he was like, "Oh yeah, one time there was this woman who." Poor woman, she was here and nobody ever showed up. But then I found the flower on the floor. So apparently the guy showed up, didn't find her attractive, and left. It's kind of a dick thing to do. But he's like, oh, don't worry about it. I'm sure, if he goes, he's like, if you don't, if he doesn't show up, I'll come over here and do whatever.
I'll come and sit with you.
Yeah, I'll come and sit with you. So.
It's one of them scenes that if it was in an Adam Sandler movie, the waiter would have been some really creepy guy. Like, I'll come over and sit with you.
Yeah, I know. It would have been, I don't know, Steve Buscemi.
Yeah, it would have been Steve Buscemi,
Rob Schneider,
Crazy Eyes.
Or anybody, or somebody else, one of random Adam Sandler's friends. But what happens is Jimmy Stewart's character does end up coming in, and he just, like, pretends that he's just there coincidentally.
He wants to gauge how he first of all he wants to play with her. I think he wants to mess with her.
True.
But I think also he's
curious.
He's curious. He wants to. He's starting. I think work it over in his own mind. If he actually wants to try to like talk to her, like seriously, and let her know what's really going on. But then by the end of it, she pretty harshly insults him. Calls him a good-for-nothing clerk.
They have a fantastic back and forth, like, discussion. It's a heated discussion. It's like they kind of like insult each other back and forth. But ultimately, what I got from that sequence is that she's judging him, and she's judging him based off of what she just sees at work. Yeah. Like you were mentioning before. Like she doesn't believe that this guy could ever even remotely come close to the person that she is corresponding with through the letters, because he's completely opposite of that.
Yeah.
He's not. He doesn't look like he reads Tolstoy.
Yeah. Well,
or Victor
in the
Hugo
scene,
or
he says he's like people don't take the time to get below the surface of people.
Right.
They just see what they see.
Talk about a contemporary message. That's something that's still around today.
Oh, yeah.
Don't judge a book by its cover, that old thing or whatnot, or people aren't all they appear to be, and you really have to give someone, some time to see who they really are, because you never quite know who they really are. And sometimes it's positive and sometimes it's negative. Sometimes you unearth skeletons in the closet that should stay in the closet because they're pretty dark stuff. Or sometimes you unearth things like someone is a writer or a poet or an artist or something, or is into literature or is into whatever, and you wouldn't know these things because you didn't take the time to ask them about it or talk with them about it. You just judge them based off of what you assume they are.
Yeah, sometimes we get in our own way and we judge people before we really get to know them. We have preconceived notions. She has an idea of him in his mind, and she's already made up her mind. So she doesn't really, want to get to know him anymore. She's only focused on what she thinks her idea man is who is who she's waiting on, and doesn't care about him. So she wants him to leave, and he won't leave, and then she insults him pretty nasty to get him to leave.
Doesn't she call him? She calls him like a broken cigarette lighter or something.
Yeah.
Like a cigarette lighter that doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like he's got fire, but he just like isn't good or something.
We don't want to give away. You watch the movie, you get all the great details.
Definitely watch this movie. I mean, we're spoiling the hell out of it, but it's such a fantastic.
Yeah,
film.
You can get the great details by watching it.
That.
But yeah, she insults him by calling him a good for nothing clerk, and he leaves upset. Of course.
And then after that, Kralik goes to the hospital to visit Mr. Matichek, who basically not only reoffers him a job, but basically tells him, I need you to run the shop now as the manager because I'm in the hospital.
And one of them great comedy moments with Pepe, which is, he comes...
Oh, Pepe's basically talking to
the doctor.
Sigmund Freud?
Yeah. He comes out with the doctor, and the doctor, he's like, so what is this, a nervous breakdown, right? And then the doctor explains it with all this, like, scientific mumbo-jumbo, and then he's just like, so, is that just another word for nervous breakdown?
Yeah. And he asks him, so what's your position at Matichek and Company? He's like, I like, what does he say? Like, I bring like customers to the products, or the products.
I'm customer support or customer communications or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Basically, like he's an errand boy.
Yeah,
that's what he is. Yeah. But what is interesting, the guy, why I call the doctor Sigmund Freud is because he's like. Looks like Sigmund Freud. Yeah. He's got the glasses, the goatee. I mean, it's set in that area of the world. I mean, and he's talking about like psychoanalysis and all that kind of stuff. But so Kralik gets the job, and
he finds out about the whole situation that
why Matichek has been treating him like crap for like the last couple of months.
Yeah.
Because Matichek thought that he was having an affair with his wife, and Jimmy Stewart goes like, why would you think that? And he was like, because that one time you came over.
You were the only one that's seen my house. You've been around my wife.
Seen my house.
Yeah.
Who's been around my wife. And you sent my wife flowers after that dinner, basically.
Yeah.
And this has one of the most profound lines or profound concepts I find in this film is how Matichek calls jealousy a poison.
Yeah.
And to me, it just makes me think of slow-moving poison that just spreads and spreads and spreads, and how jealousy can make one think things that aren't actually true.
Yeah,
you're just so it poisons your mind so badly that you're just making things up to make it worse and worse and worse. And that's what happened to Matichek, to the point where his best best employee, a friend, you would say he treated him like crap because he was jealous of him, and he didn't need to be, because Jimmy Stewart had nothing to do with his wife's affair at all. What is interesting is that Matichek also mentioned that he and his wife were married 22 years, which is it's a long time to be with somebody and to have that sense of betrayal. So you kind of understand his sense of despair when it came to wanting to kill himself. Yet again, suicide for depression reasons is something that's also very modern. Happens all the time. You hear about it in the news all the time. Someone gets bullied, or someone is just depressed beyond a point, or is abused or whatnot, and they end up committing suicide because of that feeling of worthlessness or feeling of self-hatred. It happens.
Oh, yeah.
And just sadly happens. So Matichek gives him his job, makes him the manager, and basically what they're going to do with Vadish is they're going to fire him. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, and
they're going to fire him.
So there's a whole scene. Everybody, he comes in, he's running the store, and so he brings him into the office. And first of all, before that, now Pepe is now a clerk.
Yeah, Pepe's he's now been bumped up.
He's been bumped up. He's a clerk now, and they hire a new errand boy, which, like I said earlier, he like messes with him the whole time.
The kid's name is Rudy.
Yeah. And I just love the interactions after that. He becomes super serious after that, like trying to act like he's a higher up of some sorts.
He walks in and calls the temp agency.
Yeah,
or whatnot,
he's wearing a suit now. He's
he's walking in all his hot stuff. And what's interesting is though is like he tells the fellow employees that without me you wouldn't have a job today because Montrachet tried to like shoot himself.
And then they get a call.
You may want to kept that under wraps.
Yeah, and then they get a call from his wife, and then he's like, "Oh, what do you want, Fonage or whatever? Do you need him or something?"
Oh yeah, he basically Montrachet isn't here. He's out with other women or something like that.
Something, yeah. He
basically tells her to go basically just
go fuck herself,
screw off. Yeah, basically go screw off, because of what she did.
But so now he's in the office with him, and he fires him.
Initially, he made him do like grunt
he's
work,
gonna say, take these things from the top shelf and move them to the bottom shelf, and take the bottom, put them to the top shelf, and
and the guy's going with it because he's such a schmaltzy like kiss ass type of dude that he just like is not gonna break character at all.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. He's just gonna continue being the slimy jerk. But he does end up getting fired. They get in a little bit of a fight.
Well, and I was going to say, what's funny is we talked about that box, all them boxes.
Oh,
them
yeah.
shitty boxes that were facades. Well, he's the facade of all the people, right? He's the one hiding stuff, and he gets knocked into them boxes at the end.
Yeah, Jimmy Stewart throws him into the boxes, and
which
then the guy's
honestly was inappropriate.
Oh yeah, he's gonna get
sued.
He's gonna get sued. They're gonna sue, and he tells him he's gonna sue them not only for like slander. He's gonna sue them for like
because he definitely assaulted him. Yes.
Well, he also accused him of like sleeping with the boss's wife, basically.
But he did. So.
Which he did, but he's like, "Oh, did you hear what he said? What he called me, blah blah blah," and all that kind of stuff. And so they throw him through it. All the what's interesting to go, and when he gets knocked through, all the songs keep playing because the box is all open. So they're trying to close the boxes, and then the guy's like, "Well, where's my severance? Where's my pay? Where's my letter of recommendation?" And the guy's like, and then Jimmy Stewart's, "Oh yeah, you're right.
Oh, I forgot about your
Flora. Take this down. So Vadesh, what do you call him? He basically just insulted him to his face. He's like, if he doesn't leave here, I'm going to knock him out.
Yeah.
So the guy runs out of the place. But what we also learn is that Miss Novak didn't come into work today because she's distraught over the person she was corresponding with not showing up. Little did she know that the person did actually show up, being Jimmy Stewart. So he goes and visits her. But what we also find is that there's a shot of where she goes to the post office box or her mailbox to see if there's a letter, and there's like a great like camera like dolly shot push in of her hand in the mailbox, and there's nothing there. So that kind of like just an aesthetic representation of her feeling
her nothingness, feeling
bad, sad. So. Basically, Kralik goes to visit her and sees her in bed and whatnot, and what happens is she mysteriously gets a letter.
Now there's a letter
from her secret admirer. It's mysteriously a letter, and he's like, "Oh yeah, just read it. Don't bother me. Read it. Just go right ahead." And she's reading it, and she just loves it, right? And he's just sitting there looking out the window, smiling, like saying, "Yep." Like giving him like almost like a thumbs up in his head, like yep, no, I'm so smart, I'm so good. You know what I mean? Like giving him like a fist pump, right? So and of course, and then that's when they have a nice like kind of back and forth there where she's like really surprised about there's some tender stuff that he says, some serious stuff that he says, and she's like, wow, I can't believe you have this that tendency in you and all this kind of stuff. He's slowly starting
he's starting to show his real self to her.
Slowly, like the paint is chipping away. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's really trying to show who he really is. And what is interesting is that then of course it makes her feel better. Like
now she's like, I'll be back to work tomorrow.
I'll be back to work tomorrow. So there's a flash forward to 2 weeks later. It's Christmas Eve, and Marachek and Company is
the store is banging.
they're gonna have they're gonna try to have record sales. Like it's gonna be the best thing ever. They want to dedicate it, of course, to Mr. Matichek, who's still in the hospital for these last 2 weeks and whatnot. He actually, I don't know if he got released or if he snuck out.
Apparently he's probably at home and he's supposed to be taking it easy, and he's deciding he's going to come in and check out what's going on. And apparently, I mean, it's booming sales. They make almost $10,000 in a day.
Yeah, I just remember what the currency was. It was called Panga.
Oh, okay.
That was the term. Panga.
That sounds made up, but okay.
Yeah, it probably
sounds like Jenga.
I do not know what the currency. Yeah, I don't know what the currency was in Hungary circa 1940.
But they make record sales in the day, and they all kind of start to celebrate, and
Well, what is it? Before that, he's outside, looking at the crowd, talking to I think it was
he tries to sell something to a woman who knows knows who he is.
It's so great. Yeah. It's just he's like, oh, I don't have my glasses. Can you tell me how much is that briefcase in the window there? She's like, oh, $24.50. He's like, $24.50. What
they have great bargains here.
What great bargains here. And then she's like, well, you should know, Mr. Matichek. They found him out.
You know how they get great bargains here? It's like, you should know. You run the place.
I know. So that's kind of
He was
funny.
Him trying to do his old school sales routine with these customers that never works.
Right. So cut to inside. Miss Novak is back working, like we said, and Jimmy Stewart stops her and asks her how she's doing and is concerned about her and whatnot. Is this after where he gives out the bonuses to everybody? Well, they're still working. She's carrying a bunch of boxes, and I just thought it was a very small thing that was very interesting because it's the friendly work environment that we didn't see before. Remember, they had that contentious work environment. That's just something that's small that I think shows the shift.
Yeah,
it shows that they're now. It's a much more friendlier work environment between the two. That they're not contentious anymore,
and because of that, they're more successful.
Yeah, I guess maybe that actually does make sense. Correlate that with the success of the store.
Yeah.
And then of course there's the scene where Matichek is so proud of them and all that kind of stuff. This is when he mentions this is the best sales we've had since 29 or something like that.
So it's been 11 years and they've not done as well as the...
Well, 29 was the stock market crash.
Oh,
crashed everything around the world. So that's what kind of gave me the idea that this takes place post stock market crash,
Okay.
In that area. So, and then this is when he's handing out the bonuses. He hands the bonuses out to everybody, and then he's like, "Oh, who are you?" And that's when we're introduced to Rudy, I
love it.
The kid, the wide-eyed kid.
Rudy gets a tip. He gets a little bit of money and
in cash, straight cash.
And then Pepe's just like, "Let me see that. That's too much." He gives it back to him though.
He does give it back to him.
He's like, "I've been in your position and I never got this much money."
So, and then of course there was a great scene when Kralik went to see Miss Novak. Miss Novak told him that she's going to buy her the guy she's corresponding with that cigarette box for Christmas.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Stewart's character and Kralik is trying to tell her, you know what he would want better would be one of those new imported wallets that we got, knowing that he doesn't want that shitty box that he hates, right? So of course she's like, oh no, I think he'll like the cigarette box, and like, oh okay, whatever. And then there's a great scene between Pirovich and Miss Novak before the bonus scene where Pirovich is just kind of talking up the wallet because he has it.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, you know what's I hear I got a picture of my family, so every time I open it, it's like I'm hearing a beautiful music because it's my family and I love them.
Yeah.
All this kind of stuff. He's talking it up, and then he walks to the guy's office and he goes, "You're getting the wallet."
Oh,
and then it just cuts to something.
We forgot to talk about kind of a comedy beat at the beginning with what's his name, Pirovich, where every time he's asking people's opinions, Pirovich walks away.
Well, I mentioned.
Oh, did you say that? I'm sorry. I couldn't. I didn't remember us talking about that.
Yeah, remember I said every time he walks out of the room because he doesn't want to hear the guy. He doesn't want to hear.
He does it at least 2 or 3 times. He walks away.
Yeah, he's coming up the stairs and he's going, but he goes right back.
Yeah,
up. Yeah. So he's like, he walks in, and he goes, "Yeah, you're getting the wallet," because he knows Pirovich is in on all of this. So they're about to leave. They're about to lock up the shop and whatnot, and she's wrapping up the wallet, and Kralik comes over to her and whatnot, and they start talking, and she's like, oh, and she's like, and he says, "Oh yeah, he stopped by."
Yeah, this is where he decides to lay it on thick about.
Yeah, are they gonna really? I mean, what do you think of this whole thing where he basically just like says, "Oh yeah, he came by," and he's just painting like a really bad picture of this.
I think he's enjoying, no.
You think it's more? I think it's more playful.
I think it is playful. I do think, in reality, it is kind of fucked up. I mean, it's like, come on, man, just stop messing with her. Like, it's been weeks. It's technically been weeks.
Right. And but he says like all kind of shallow type stuff, which I guess we're looking at it from a modern lens. Like, oh yeah, he's fat and he's like his name is.
He also
Pumpkin.
has no job, and then
he's got no job. But he's like, but he's confident that they can live off
of your salary,
live off of his salary because he says because she says that I may be engaged come next time you see me, and he's like, oh, I may be engaged as well, and he's like, and that's how they're playing it off and whatnot, and so he makes up like just a fallacy that he's just like this fictional person that she has in her head is a bad guy, and then of course we get the big reveal that he is the one.
Yeah, I mean, when she's gotten to this point where she's obviously very worried about the man that she might be, because apparently he's seen him and she hasn't seen him, and then he finally kind of uses a line from their letters that are used over and over again, which is "dear friend."
Yeah, he quotes it. He says "dear friend," and he puts it. You know what it was? It was a red carnation.
Okay,
he puts a red carnation in his lapel and reveals to her that she was the mystery man this whole time. That he was her mystery man this whole time.
And it throws her off at first. Like she's like.
What is very interesting about that scene, if you look at both of them, because they're very close in proximity within the frame, you get kind of a reverse shot of their look on their faces. They're both having very emotional reactions to this moment.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Granted, we just mentioned that in a way he has, when it comes to power dynamics and things like that, he does have all the power because he knows, he knows the mystery, so therefore he's playing with her. But in that moment, I also think he's extremely nervous.
I think he's nervous that she's going to be mad. Yeah.
Just the way he puts the flower in the lapel, the way Jimmy Stewart plays it with a little bit of shaky nervousness, and when he has the flower in his hand and the way his face is shaking, it looks how nervous he is. And of course she is like taken aback, you know what I mean? Like she's very shocked, if you will. And you hold your breath in that moment because you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How is she going to react? How is this going to play out? But of course, Hollywood being Hollywood at the time.
I think in reality, somebody probably would have had a quick emotional reaction of being probably pissed off.
It would have. I think the scene would have been a little bit longer of them having an emotional.
I was going to say, in today's romantic comedy, she would have gotten mad, stormed out, and then they would have extended the movie another 20 minutes.
At least.
And then we would have finally had an airport scene where they make up.
Or like he would have held a boombox in the rain.
Yeah, boombox in the rain. There would have been an extra 20 minutes in the movie. The movie would have been 2 hours instead of an hour. He
would have gone to like her apartment and had a huge heartfelt confession about just laying it all on the line. But in the moment, I feel like this is more organic.
Oh no, it works.
Because it works because of I just think that chemistry throughout the whole film was there. And that moment, the way they played so genuine was really there.
She automatically, when she thinks about the fact that he's known the whole time, she thinks back to the restaurant scene where she was really mean to him.
Yeah, she just destroyed his character, basically.
So it brought it, and over this time, instead of being because they've grown to like each other outside of what's been going on here, they like in reality they've become friends. She doesn't feel bad about it. She even says it. She says, I am taken back, but I don't really feel so bad about this idea. Like this is cool. Like I'm glad.
What is very interesting is that before then,
I was going to say, we forgot to talk about
she was wrapping up the wall, and we forgot to talk about this, is like, she was like, when I first started working here, basically she had a crush on him.
In this moment really was something that's happened to me personally. I've had a moment with a girl before where it's been a long like we're not like this girl's a friend and I'm with somebody, she's with somebody, but she tells me that, hey, back when we first met, I used to like you. I'm like, what? Like, why didn't you?
Oh yeah, that's happened.
Yeah.
Not to me personally, but I've seen it.
Yeah, it's like they're like, I had a crush on you, and blah blah blah. I'm like, what? Why didn't you tell me? Like,
What's interesting, Stephen. This is a look into my life. I'm usually the person that's the opposite of that.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Where I'm the person who has the crush on somebody and they have no idea about it.
Yeah.
That's me. But they have a great moment when she's like laying it on. She's like, there were moments when we were back here in the storeroom where I just wish you would sweep me off my feet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa. And then, but then when they had that back and forth about him, like when he was making up the fictional version of himself, like the overweight, out of work and all that kind of stuff, he's like, what if when you opened your apartment door tonight it was me instead of him? How would that make you feel? And she was like, oh, don't play with me like that and all that kind of stuff. Very interesting emotional climax to this movie that I really, really liked a lot. I think overall this is a fantastic movie.
Oh yeah,
I've seen it now 3 times. This was the first time for Steven to get into this movie, and I know a lot of classic film fans really, really like and really, really praise it. And I wish I owned it. I don't own it at all. There's no Blu-ray release now for it. There's a DVD.
Yeah, maybe Criterion will get a hold of this. It's an MGM movie.
Well, that's what I think, because I watched it on the Criterion Channel streaming service.
Yeah. Me too.
And I mean, that's not a direct indication that's coming out on Criterion.
I mean, Criterion's been getting a lot of great classic Hollywood stuff lately with the Bette Davis stuff and I mean, they've been getting a lot of good, I could see it happening, definitely.
I can see it happening because, one, it's an Ernst Lubitsch film. They've already distributed a bunch of his stuff. Clooney Brown. Clancy Brown is that great actor.
Not Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown was one of the prison guards in Shawshank.
Yeah.
And he was the Kurgan in Highlander.
That's an actor.
That is an actor. But Clooney Brown just came out. The other films that I mentioned earlier are on there as well. And it's an MGM film. And MGM, when it comes to distribution for MGM's back catalog, the ownership is kind of all over the place. Yeah. Like, I think a bunch of different studios own it, so it's kind of up for grabs, basically. Yeah. It's not like it's a Warner Brothers film where Warner Brothers right now, they're not lending out any of their classic films. They're putting all that out themselves. Yeah. You know what I mean? 20th Century Fox is kind of loaned out to other companies. So Columbia Pictures is kind of loaned out to other companies, but that's all kind of in control of those companies. Whereas MGM, I think, is a little more wide open when it comes to who's distributing it. And you know what? To be honest, I want this movie to be given a good release, not just a one-off release. Or just a bad, mediocre release, because I think it definitely deserves it. It's a timeless movie. Oh, yeah. It's got Jimmy Stewart's in it. Ernst Lubitsch film. It's a classic romance film. I love it. I love it.
This one, I'm definitely it's a favorite now, and I want Adam's Rib to be put out. That's another.
Oh yeah. Oh, I can't wait for that. Yeah. I really wish it was out already.
Yeah. But
come on now.
It's definitely up there. I still hold It Happened One Night as my favorite of that time period, definitely.
Right. I mean, what is interesting is that I think It Happened One Night came out only a few years earlier than this.
Well, yeah, that, and also apparently I read this. They did a broadcast version of this movie, and Claudette Colbert did the woman's voice of the female character in the movie.
What is interesting is that this Shop Around the Corner was a play.
Yeah.
It was based on a Hungarian play called Parfumerie? Yeah. It came out in 1937. That's what I'm just reading what it says here. Yeah. And apparently it's they get rid of all the politics that were leading up to World War II, and it's so basically I guess we can assume that the movie took place in 1937.
Yeah.
So before World War II. I mean, it's a very small film. It feels like a play. You only get 3 sets in this play.
Yeah.
In this movie, I mean,
there's a hospital, there's the store, and then there's the restaurant.
But I think there's the storefront, there's inside the store, there is the hospital, like you said, and there's inside the cafe, and then there's inside Miss Novak's apartment. So 5.
Yeah, it's still very small. Yeah,
very, very small film. What really carries it, I think, is the screenplay, the dialogue, the character interactions, the character chemistry.
Yeah, the chemistry is a lot of it,
all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I definitely enjoyed it, and it's definitely a recommend, high recommend. But I think that's going to do it for us on this Christmas spotlight here. I wouldn't say this is a legitimate, I would say 100% Christmas movie.
Right.
But I do think that the themes and some of the, the good feeling you get by the end of the movie really can make you feel that Christmas, thing, that you want.
There's a positivity and a sense of love in this film that I think is connected to the Christmas or holiday season.
Yeah. I would say it's borderline though. It's definitely borderline.
Okay.
But it's
Mr.
definitely
Expert.
a movie I would watch at Christmas. I mean, it's good. But
I want to bring up something right now, but we got to end this podcast.
if it's something about Die Hard, then I don't want to hear anything.
It is.
I don't want to hear anything about Die Hard.
I'll just say this: there's a certain director who said that Die Hard's a Christmas movie, and I know Steven would be very upset about that.
Which director?
Barry Jenkins said that Die Hard's a Christmas movie.
Well, Barry Jenkins, he
Oscar winner.
He's a smart guy, but
I just say that to screw with Steven, because Steven's going on about this last year. He's going on about this year.
This is a continuous fight,
Yeah, it's a continuous fight.
I gave into it a little bit last year. I think Die Hard is an alternative Christmas movie. But to me, Christmas movies have to have a certain wholesomeness to them.
Well, I only bring that up is because you were talking about if The Shop Around the Corner was
sure
a Christmas movie. I say that in quotes, or a holiday movie.
Yeah.
So I just bring up
I prefer when if I want to call something a Christmas movie, I think it needs to be within a certain genre. The Hallmark Channel does Christmas movies. They're all the same type of movies. I'm not saying you can't put Christmas in other genres like horror, which we got like the Krampus and things like that, but them are alternative Christmas movies for me. They're not, though they are set at Christmas and they can have some holiday themes of sorts, but their intent is not to have anything to do with togetherness or family, or it's more about the genre elements to the movie than they are about Christmas. But it's okay. You guys can watch whatever you want to watch at Christmas. I watch anything. I mean, I've already watched my favorite Christmas movie, Scrooged, already. So I'm gonna go see Uncut Gems on Christmas.
Oh, good choice. Good choice. But nothing says Christmas like gambling away money.
Gambling away and Adam Sandler.
Adam Sandler.
8 Crazy Nights.
I guess. 8 Crazy Nights. But let's end this before Steven goes on an even longer rant. Or I say something that sends Steven on a tangent into.
We could get on a tangent about Star Wars, but maybe we'll do you want to do a special Star Wars review episode, like where we maybe after Christmas this week, or like maybe this weekend we could shoot a little quick talk about it, maybe.
Yeah,
an extra thing.
That's fine. A little behind the scenes though, we spent like a half an hour before the show even started talking about it, so I think we could extend that to a full episode.
I think we could do it. I mean, it'll be a special thing, just something special extra that we'll do, because I know we both want to talk about it.
Yeah, there's a lot to say about it.
Yeah,
and we need to have a special amount of time to do it.
Yeah, we'll dedicate like kind of a special spoiler review that's not part of our regular. It'll be an extra bonus episode. All right, so that'll be it for this episode of the Cinema Discovery Project. Where can we find you, Andrew?
You can find me on Twitter at Kevzilla06, as well as my YouTube channel, Kevzilla Productions.
And you can find me on Facebook, Stephen Billings. You can find... next year, we're going to start pushing the show a little bit more. I've been lazy about pushing the show. So we do have a Facebook page for Cinema Discovery Project. We're going to post all our episodes on there. We're going to start making sure we do that more often. We're maybe try to advertise this a little bit more too. But you can find me also on Instagram, Cinema Discovery Project, where I post all my goodies that I buy. And you can find the audio for this podcast on Podbean and Apple Podcasts. And hey guys, have a Merry Christmas, have a Happy New Year. We will see you next time in 2020. 2020.
I can't believe it.
It's crazy. We're going to be in the 20s, man.
I know, the roaring 20s.
The roaring 20s. And hey guys, in 2020, keep on watching them movies.
I know I will.